Hello there, gals, guys, and those who do not conform to gender. My name is Bari, and you won't be sorry that you have stumbled upon this YouTube video. We are here today to talk about some of my obsessed. No, not you guys. Aww. You will get your time in the sun, do not fret. But I'm talking about these guys. These 7 are a part of my story that I have affectionately named Crystal Hearts. I've had this concept in my brain for about, 6 years now? Jesus Christ, that's a long time. Anyways, you might have seen these goopers on my art fight page, and maybe 1 or 2 of you have attacked them, which if you did, I love you and you are now my best friend. This video will basically be a rundown of their lore and their backstories, as well as tidbits about how they differ from previous drafts of their story. Also, a few disclaimers. This video will have brief mentions of the things listed on screen, so if you are sensitive to these topics, please click away. Also, these aren't fully rendered pieces. This video would have taken way longer to make if I tried rendering. Maybe someday in another video where I'm not drawing 7, technically 13 designs, but this is not that video. Before we start, I also want to say like, subscribe, and I don't know, turn on notifications, you know, YouTube stuff. Anyways, we have a lot to cover today, so let's get to it. Wait. Before we move on to the characters, I have to give you some context for the world these characters reside in. The story takes place in a modern world that for the most part is not too different from our own. In this world, there are 14 different gods. 7 are each the god of one of the 7 heavenly virtues. These gods are referred to as Numens, while the other 7, the Daemons, are each the god of one of the 7 deadly sins. Each Numen mainly has an influence over a different continent, as well as the daemon that opposes their virtue. The Numens were trying to protect the Earth, due to it basically being the one planet that would have made the entire universe collapse if it were destroyed. However, the Daemons wanted to corrupt the Earth and make it their own, so they could control the fabric of the universe itself. Basically, hundreds of years ago, each Numen had granted one human their power to stop the Daemons from trying to take over Earth. After the Daemons were sealed away physically, they were still able to taint human hearts through their subconscious. This led to 7 underground cults to be formed, 1 per continent, and each valuing one of the 7 deadly sins. To combat this, each person that was granted the Numen's power shared their magic with the world so that they too will be able to fight the Daemons in case they ever return. The Virtue Foundations were formed as 7 facilities to gather guardians and be able to teach them how to combat monsters. The monsters in this world don't have names yet, but they aren't technically fully monstrous. Depending on the region you're in, the villains will use a person leaning into sin to turn them into a monster. One of the guardians' jobs is to find the monster and turn them back into a human. The story itself is about the 7 heroes that are connected to the Numens in ways that I fully can't get into, as I would have to talk about the villains, but I will say reincarnation does play a role. I'm picturing there being 9 arcs, with the first and last being focused on the team overall, and the other 7 being about each of the main characters, while the team travels to the continent that is linked with the virtue that matches the specific character. Anyways, I believe that's all the basics, so let's get on to the first character. Chase Morera. Guardian name, Light Ruby. Being the leader of a magical guardian team isn't easy, yet for Chase, it seems to come naturally to him. He may be prone to goofing off with his best friend Hugo or get completely sidetracked doing the most mundane tasks, but when the situation gets dire, he always pulls through. He tries his best to be there for his teammates and include everyone in all the conversation. His friends would describe him as loyal, supportive, and never afraid in the face of danger. Most would even call him pretty selfless. Which makes sense, his linked virtue is humility after all. But what would happen if the selfless leader thought about himself for once? Chase, if you cannot tell, is the protagonist of Crystal Hearts and the leader of Team Heartbeat. His design and personality has changed quite a bit, and really the only thing that has stayed the same is his general color scheme. In previous drafts, he honestly never had a proper personality. I would just describe him as goofy when talking about him. Although I never really drew or showed him acting in a funny manner, like, at all. When I used to draw him, it was always just him kinda there. I wanted to fix that when I came up with his new style. This time around, he's a lot more lively and has way more energy. If I were to compare the switch, he used to act more like Adrian Agreste from Miraculous Ladybug, and now he acts more like Inosuke from Demon Slayer. While yes, he is selfless, caring, and a great leader, He's also loud, brash, and sometimes even a bit reckless. The reason why he specifically is the leader requires me to do a little bit of lore dump in their powers real quick. See, after the Guardians are sent to their continent's Virtue Foundation, they are required to put their newly awakened magic into an item that holds significant sentimental value to the user, which I refer to as amulets. After the user's magic is transferred, they have to perform a deed related to their connected virtue in order to gain the ability to transform. The deed itself cannot be for the sake of doing it to make yourself transform and must be genuine. If you're on a team, the first person to unlock the ability to transform is deemed leader. For his guardian form, I don't know how to transition talking points. It's not anything too special. I imagine it's sort of a miraculous type of situation where the outfit you transform into would match the user's hobbies, interests, and or personal style. It's not always all of this criteria, but more than often it's some combination of all three. Chase's guardian form is basically like what he wears every day with slight changes like the added heart sunglasses and heart staff, and obviously recolorings. I like to think that it's just due to him just loving his civilian clothes so much that it translated into his hero form. Also, I don't know where to put this, I'm gonna just put this here. For his powers, I'm playing around with the idea of him being able to use different elements avatar style, but it's not fully worked out yet, so bear with me. Moving on to his current civilian design, his new outfit draws from his previous design with a few tweaks. He now has a cropped short sleeve hoodie with a black cropped tank top over it, baggy red cargo pants paired with black and red shoes, fingerless gloves, and a friendship bracelet with the other half belonging to his little sister. Finally, Chase's amulet is his golden heart lock necklace that was given to him by his best friend, whom you will be meeting later. His hair also used to be naturally blonde, but I figured him actively bleaching his hair fit more of his spontaneous personality better. Plus, also, due to how things work in my universe now, it really wouldn't make sense as to why he would have blonde hair. Anyways, the bits of red in his hair as well as the red eyes are indicators of him having magic slash what virtue he's connected to. In this world, if a person is born with bits of unnaturally colored hair and or unnaturally colored eyes, it's a sign of being blessed by the Newmans and shows you have magic. The virtue assigned to you will depend on the unnatural color. You can only have one color and it sticks with you for life. You can't only cut out the colored chunks of your hair, unless you shave your entire head bald. Your eyes will reject colored contacts, and you can't dye it away. Even if you get older, your lime green hair will never turn gray. If you, for whatever reason, want to hide your magic, the only foolproof way is to wear sunglasses or a hat. Back to his lore, he has, not too bad of a home life, but not the best either. Ever since his sister was born, his parents had to each get a full-time job for them to keep up with 2 kids, and the house, and everything else. Originally, Chase and his sister were pretty much on their own a lot of the time, with the only real interaction with his parents being either breakfast or dinner a lot of the time, when one of his parents was either waking up and the other just got home from work. Any other time than that, they never really saw their parents since, you know, they were quote-unquote busy. I imagine it's the same idea now, but rather than just being by themselves, they would constantly be over at either a family friend's house or a relative's place. Chase's emotional surge is still a bit up in the air. His emotional surge was him basically having a fight with his parents, but if I'm being honest, I don't want everyone on the team's emotional surges to only be negative, but the only thing I can think of for how his emotional surge was positive is whether one of his parents gets a huge promotion, meaning the other can quit their job, or something positive related to school. He is a senior by this start of the story, so maybe he got into college he always wanted to go to or something? I don't know. Anyways, here's Chase. Currently, I'm very happy with his civilian and guardian design, but I can't say the same for the others though. We'll get back to that.
Is it me, or does everyone seem a bit weird? Not only is that person a fake, he's a terrible fake!
Mom, I'm on TV! Thank you all for making me look good! I love that!
Hugo Iglesias. Guardian name, Light Quartz. A flamboyant and charismatic young man, despite claiming he comes from old money and tends to buy very expensive luxuries, he's not much of a spoiled brat. If anything, half of the things he uses for his riches are mainly for his friends, whether it's using the family's private jet to take his friends shopping in Paris, or giving someone a makeover who desperately needs it. He prides himself on the ability to help his friends to be happier with every kind gesture, but sometimes cracks of envy can appear just below the surface. Hugo is Chase's best friend, as well as a member of Team Heartbeat. In terms of personality, he relatively has stayed the same from the previous draft, but compared to when I first concepted the story, story, his personality became more fleshed out, I guess? When I first came up with his character, he really was just the best friend and nothing more. Although at the time I did picture him having a personality similar to Ryuji Sakamoto from Persona 5, or even Taishi from Cardfight Vanguard, if any of you have read that manga. Nowadays, he's more like Sharpay Evans if she was never mean, or even Tamaki from Oran High School Host Club, since in the nicest way possible, he is a bit of an idiot. As for his new design, he dresses a lot more proper than he used to. He has a dress shirt with slightly puffy sleeves at the wrists, a magenta vest with silver buttons, black shorts, fingerless gloves to match his bestie, and knee-high boots. His amulet is the sunglasses that he usually wears on his head. The glasses were also a gift from Chase when they were kids as their first friendiversary or friendship anniversary present. His guardian form has gone through a bit of alterations. I want every Guardian team to lean on having a theme, while every Guardian specifically on the team has to represent something related to the theme, or like a subgenre of the theme. For Team Heartbeat, the theme is creative arts, which means each member represents a different creative art. For Hugo, his creative art is acting. I was having a bit of trouble figuring out his design. All I'm saying is don't be too attached to this design because I will eventually be redesigning it. At this point, it's more so a matter of when rather than if. For this particular design, I tried giving him a more musketeer look since I was trying to go with the look of the main character in a 16th century style play. For whatever reason, my brain immediately linked that to musketeers. For his weapon, it's been one of the only things that has stayed consistent with every draft of his story. I don't know why, but I've always thought of the idea of fighting with an umbrella was super cool. For Hugo specifically, I can imagine him using it more defensively rather than offensively though. But anyway, his powers are a tiny bit more concrete than Chase's. I've been thinking some kind of illusion type of magic. Mainly he's able to change how his environment or how he himself looks. This being because it kind of reminds me of setting a stage, and changing his appearance is kind of how an actor plays different roles. Anyways, finally, for his lore and emotional surge, I don't have his plotted out yet. The emotional surge, I mean. In the previous draft, his emotional surge was because his parents was moving to another city due to his dad getting a job opportunity. He wanted to stay behind because he didn't want to leave his best friend. And the first night at his aunt's house, whom he was now living with, he sobbed because he had never lived with his parents before. But due to his updated lore, I'm not so sure that exact scenario would work. Speaking of his lore, buckle up bitches, you're in for a bumpy ride. At the start of the story, Hugo introduces himself to other members of the team, obviously besides Chase, not as Hugo Iglesias, but rather as Hugo Santiago. His parents, Diego and Maria Iglesias, are actually very famous. Diego is a well-known telenovela star whose work has been so popular that a lot of people, even those outside of Latin America, knows of him. His mother is a famous Broadway actress who has even released a bit of music in her day. They're the reasons why Hugo is filthy rich. But one small thing, no one really knows they have a son. The reason being that they didn't want Hugo to be raised in the public eye. When his mother was pregnant, she took a break from acting for an entire year for quote-unquote family reasons. After Hugo was born, he was actually mostly raised by one other person, that being his parents' manager, Marco Santiago. Basically, he was the closest person physically to them that they could trust to raise their kid whenever they had to fly out to some random location to shoot a film or go on some kind of press tour. With time, and no other options for Marco since he really needed the job, he eventually warmed up to Hugo and they gained a really close bond. It's to the point where Hugo views him as a second dad. So in order to sell the idea of him not being their son while he was growing up, everyone aside from a few close relatives believed that Marco was Hugo's actual father and that his mother was out of the picture. Eventually, when Hugo came of age, Diego and Maria wanted to finally drop the secret and introduce him to the world as their son. However, Hugo didn't want to. He did look up to his parents and did want to be an actor like them, but he didn't want to feel like he was cheating in a way. His parents had offered to put in good words for him to casting directors, but he always refused. He wanted to get to the top on his own, as his own person. Maybe one day he'll reveal his family secret, but for now, he wanted to be famous because of his own talents and not because of who he's the son of. Giant lordom, my bad. But anyway, here's Hugo. I will say, despite the way his guardian form looks, I do like the way the poses turned out. Anyways, on to the next one.
It's not polite to tease them.
Should I prepare for battle?
I'm rambling again. I'm sorry. Now that I'm here, I can't even remember.
Fukumi Kahalai, guardian name Light Emerald, has been described as the sunshine of the group. Her optimism and enthusiasm has been beneficial whenever the others are down in the dumps or if they need a little bit of motivation. Although, to an extent, her positivity knows no bounds and has sometimes been deemed unnecessary for the situation. All of her teammates have noted that they have never once seen this girl exhibit any negative emotions. Although, whenever they're in a stressful situation or in a negative environment, they note that Fukumi has always stepped away from their sight whilst looking shaken up before coming back with her usual chipper personality. But what kind of personality lies behind her bubbly mask? Kumi, my child! She's kept a lot of her original traits and mannerisms in every draft. However, I wanted for her to have a bit more layers to her personality rather than just being simply the cute one who's just kind of there. Also, before I continue, I will be using her name interchangeably with her nickname, which is Kumi. Anyways, she's also kind of a spin on the popular girl trope, where instead of just being popular for her looks and riches, she's popular because of how nice she is. Also, her color is green, which does mean the virtue linked to her is chastity. Usually, chastity is depicted as controlling / refraining from your urges, and I did want to have a nod to that because she is Arrow Ace, but in my universe I decided chastity is less about things like abstinence and more about the act of seeing below the surface and getting to know someone for who they are, kind of like a love versus lust situation, and I do think she already embodies that a little bit. Cheap segue, moving on to her design. She has a lot of differences compared to her previous design. Her colors are a lot more vibrant, including her skin tone. I feel like her skin leaned more grayish, especially while she was in her civilian form, so I leaned more towards a warm tone. I gave her a pleated skirt and knee-high socks, as well as white and green tennis shoes and a turtleneck with a t-shirt over it. Can you tell I like layered clothes? Her amulet is a diamond-shaped mirror that her father gave her when she was little. Her guardian form is based on K-pop / J-pop idols, since her theme specifically is music. I wanted her to look like an idol who just performed on Mnet Countdown while also being more simple. When I was designing her form, I don't know why, but I put her mirror in her hair as some sort of hair clip thing? I don't know, I feel like it fits. Or it looks stupid, but you know what? I like it, and that's all that matters. Also, yes, her weapon is a microphone. Her powers are, again, still up in the air, although it does change a bit at some point in the story, I do know that. I have the idea that because the emotional surge can awaken your powers, emotions can also affect your magic. If someone were to, I don't know, bottle up their emotions and never acknowledge them, I can see their powers going a bit haywire. During the first half of the story, she would kind of have a sonic screaming ability due to this, but anyway, moving on to her lore and emotional surge. I've got this one a lot more fleshed out. When she was a kid, it was just her and her two parents. While she loved her mom to bits, she did have a closer bond with her dad. Every time when she would go to bed, he would sing her a song whilst playing a different instrument every time. He's the reason why she's so into music and wants to play for the world one day. Fun fact, the reason why her name is Fukumi is because her dad named her after one of his favorite anime characters. Kumi and her dad would also go on little outings since her mom was the breadwinner of the family and was usually the one at her job during most of the day. One day, her and her father decided that their next outing was to the beach. However, while driving, some idiot was swerving their car and ended up crashing into Kumi and her dad in a head-on collision. Kumi miraculously survived, however, her father wasn't so lucky. When she and her mother were getting ready for her dad's funeral, she noted her mother really wasn't sad, or at least she didn't look like it. Her mother gave her a tiny piece of advice by saying that if you show someone you love your sorrows, then they in turn will be even more sad. Kumi didn't want to see the people she loved sad, so she took her mother's advice to heart, and as she grew, she began shoving her negative emotions in a metaphorical cupboard and locking them away, never allowing herself to be seen in any vulnerable way. However, it started getting harder and harder to hide her emotions. The tiniest things started seeming like the end of the world, until one day, she came home to find her family's dog had unfortunately knocked over and broke her dad's old guitar. Her mother wasn't home yet and she was all by herself, so she allowed herself to cry. The crying ended up escalating until she basically had a full-blown meltdown in silence, which ended up being her emotional surge. When she realized that her mom was coming home, she fixed the guitar to the best of her abilities, and and went back to acting like nothing happened. Obviously, she will learn to open up about her feelings, and she won't have to put on a mask for everyone, but for now, that's her lore. Here's Fukumi, finally done! Out of everyone, her guardian form is probably my favorite so far. But anyways, moving on to the next one.
People started praising me. That's all I'm good for, really.
I just did that. This is my canoe, and you will journey to different...
Ethan Long. Guardian name? Light Topaz. Despite being one of the younger members of Team Heartbeat by a month or two, he's notably one of the wisest and smartest of the bunch. He tends to keep to himself at times. At the time of the team forming, he really only spoke to the others if it was absolutely necessary. Despite being seen as pretty much a stonewall, his teammates have noted that he's pretty reliable. None of them have ever noted him to be intimidating. He is also one of the more skilled in combat, which makes sense considering who his father was. With the virtue of patience linked to him, he usually is very tolerant of others. However, there are a certain few who can get underneath his skin. Ethan has had one of the more drastic changes since his conception. In the first ever draft of the story, he was originally just Katsuki Bakugo from My Hero Academia, but with a different name and slightly different design. I think at the time he basically just looked like Bakugo, but with orange hair. I wouldn't know because back at the time I made all my OCs in Gacha Club on my old shitty tablet, which has been unfortunately lost to time. So right now I only have my memory to go off of. What I do remember is that just like Bakugo, he was originally chasing Hugo's bully and would constantly brag about his dad, but we'll circle back to him. For his civilian form, he's had a lot more black in his color palette. I kinda took inspiration from what 2020 e-boys wear, since I feel like Ethan would find that kind of style cool. Instead of his clothes being completely black and white, I replaced the white with a very light yellow as a nod to his color. I also gave him piercings to really sell the e-boy look, and also maybe he thought if he looked cool then people would approach him more? I don't know. He is a bit socially aloof, so he doesn't really know when people are actually trying to engage in conversation with him, but again, we'll get back to that. His amulet is now a pocket watch given to him by his dad as a family heirloom. For his guardian form, he also has changed a lot from his previous design. I really wasn't too sure on what his outfit could be based off of. His creative art slash theme is writing, and there really isn't a concrete picture of what someone would deem writing attire. Nevertheless, I still did try. Currently, he has an outfit that, due to the way his guardian form is posed, you can't really see all too well, but I'll put a picture on screen. I gave him more of a formal attire since when I think of writing, I personally tend to think of old-timey writers like Shakespeare or Edgar Allan Poe. In almost all depictions of them, they all have very formal clothes. So as for his powers, I'm thinking they would have something to do with the weather, specifically since his weapon is one of those feathers people used to use as pens. Maybe he has to write down a specific forecast and it would affect the special area they're fighting in. Although I do imagine he does have his limitations and drawbacks. Like, I don't think he can conjure up a tsunami or something, but something like a thunderstorm or a blizzard, no problem. Maybe it's a case of his magic specifically changing the formations of structures and temperatures of the clouds. But then again, what about the days when there's no clouds? I don't know. Like I said, I'm still figuring things out. Anyway, onto his lore. Ethan has been a bit socially distant from most people. He had found the concept of making friends a bit pointless since he never understood how platonic connection was beneficial. Due to this, he mainly spent most of his time buried in books and studying. He was also at the top of his class in almost every subject, which showed how much the studying paid off. Plus, he was considered conventionally attractive by his peers, which all led to him being one of the most popular people in school growing up, but in a way where people would admire him from a distance. The only people who he was really close to were his mom and dad. He admired both of them for different reasons. Like, for his mother, he admired her work ethic and strived to achieve as much knowledge as her one day. His father, Xiaodan, was a magical guardian that had gained a lot of notoriety in New Everglow, which is the city where the Humility Foundation is and where the main group is for a good chunk of the story. He was even the guardian who had trained the current head, as well as one of the strongest active guardians in North America. He also loved the idea of Ethan following in his footsteps and also being a guardian. However, Ethan wouldn't want to fight villains due to him being more so a strategist. Yeah, he wanted to be strong like his dad, but that doesn't mean he wanted to fight kaiju-style monsters in a flashy outfit. However, his father would always bring him into work, brag about how great of a guardian Ethan would be one day, and constantly mention how much he would love to fight by his son's side. Even though Ethan wasn't super enthusiastic about it, he knew there was a chance of his magic awakening and he would have to train his magic since it was mandatory. It was better for him to just comply to make things less difficult for everyone. anyone involved, but one day, everything kind of went to shit. His father was on patrol like normal when a villain had suddenly appeared. Not one of the monsters that they usually fight, but an actual villain. The news was broadcasting another one of his dad's heroic deeds when he had pursued the villain, but unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse. The villain had overpowered Xiaodan, and he was left battered and bruised. It was so bad that his magic couldn't hold its form and make him de-transform on the scene. He was rushed to the hospital, and Ethan and his mom, who had witnessed everything, rushed there as well. When they were able to see him, Xiaodan was in really bad condition. He was only able to say a few words before the light had left his eyes. "Be the hero I know you are." When Ethan had left the hospital, he was heartbroken, but he was also determined. He had clenched his father's old amulet that had been drained of its magic, which was his pocket watch. He vowed to avenge his father and one day be one of the greatest guardians the world has ever known. Heavy stuff, I know, but here's Ethan. There's a lot more stuff that I haven't mentioned, like his relationship with a certain son of a telenovela star, but I feel I've rambled enough about Ethan. All you need to know right now is that they are yaoi, rivals to friends to lovers yaoi. Also, they're slow burn, and they got on each other's nerves. But we'll get to them maybe in a future video. Anywho, next caller!
Obviously, quality beats quantity, and that times 3 is 48.
Eaten by lightning.
Doc, we've been at this for 5 hours straight. How about a lunch break?
Ari Sung. Guardian name? Light Lazuli. She's notably one of the more soft-spoken members of the group, never really socializing outside of her teammates, and even then, she still is a bit of a loner. She is, however, a very charitable person. She tends to do things for people who barely know her, since her linked virtue makes it relatively hard to say no to people. Despite all this, she can be a bit stubborn at times and struggles to let some things go, which does mean she tends to hold grudges over people a little bit. However, there is another part of her that subconsciously harbors something else, an urge to take what she believes is rightfully hers, an urge for greed. Ari is one of the few whom I actually do remember what her original name was, that being Hanako. In the first draft, she was very anxious, shy, and soft-spoken. She was a lot like Mikan from Danganronpa, minus the crazy bits, but I do remember changing her personality to just more cold and distant. One of those reasons was because her and Ethan actually used to be love interests, and I don't know, a very loud and hot-headed guy who was in fact a bully paired with a bullied and anxious girl didn't really sound the healthiest. I hated the implications of that, so I dialed it back a lot. I'm keeping those revamped personalities since even though they are no longer canon, I feel like their new personalities work way better with their new love interests. Moving on to her design, she actually has 2 versions of her civilian form. There's this one as well as a design that she will have, I'd say, during the 2nd or 3rd arc onwards. The reason why she looks the way she does in the first few arcs is because of lore related reasons that we will get onto later. She has on her glasses and she doesn't feel like putting in her contacts. Her hair is messy and unkempt because, again, she doesn't feel like it. Basically, her look at first can be chalked up to her being like, nah, I don't really feel like it. Yes, this girl is depressed. Thank you for asking. Also, her amulet is a pen that her brother gave her. As for her guardian form, my god, does it look way better on paper than when I drew her on my iPad. I hate whenever that happens. Drawing something in a sketchbook and thinking it looks good, only to draw it digitally and be shot 57 times. I tried giving her an artist outfit reminiscent of her hero design, and if I'm being honest, I prefer the old draft over this one. I hate that I'm shitting on my own art, but I swear to god I was not happy about this even while I was drawing it. Some of the other drawings I had that feeling too, but they were more of a trust the process sort of situation. Not with this one though. I will give myself credit. Her civilian form looks okay, but it's just her guardian form that looks bad to me. Trust me, I will redesign her form. I don't know why I was so hard on myself. It's not that bad in retrospect. But before I have a fucking brain aneurysm, let's move on to an aspect of this girl that I actually do like, which is her lore. To put it simply, this girl is a mess. For as long as she can remember, her parents always favored her older brother, Philho, or Phil as most people call him. They always praised him on everything he did, and in their eyes, he could never make a mistake. With Ari, however, it was as if everything she did was never good enough for them. If she didn't know any better, it seemed like they held some sort of grudge against her. Regardless, they pretty much neglected her a lot of the time, quote unquote forgetting to pick her up from school or not signing a permission slip until the last minute, while berating her for not telling them sooner when she would. They just never really cared to listen to her. You would think that all of the attention being directed at her brother would make Ari hate her brother or her brother being some stuck-up brat, but no. Her brother is actually one of the few people who would show her kindness. Whenever she would draw something for him, he would always keep it in a scrapbook in his room. He always tried to cheer her up or stick up for her whenever he could. Especially at school, Ari was relentlessly bullied ever since they were in elementary school. Her most prominent tormentors were two relatively popular girls in their small school, but keep them in mind. Their bullying had gotten worse once Phil ended up graduating. Their comments and insults became harsher and harsher, and their quote-unquote pranks became more extreme. Specifically, one day after looking around the entire school for her sketchbook, she found it in her homeroom desk, and when she opened it, she was met with the sight of horrid insults covering her drawings in black Sharpie. Obviously it was them, but she didn't confront them. Instead, she just went home and tried to bring it up to her parents, but they ended up siding with her bullies. They told her that if you're not capable enough to fight your own battles, maybe the things those girls wrote in there were true. She couldn't take it anymore, and a verbal fight broke out between her and her parents, which ended with them confiscating all of her art supplies. She sat in her room, all these emotions swirling around in her head. Everything in her life just felt like hell. Home, school, it was all the same. She had these thoughts for a while, hard to say when they started, but it had been some time, and it eventually took a turn for the worse. What happened next, she couldn't really remember. All she knew was that she woke up in a hospital bed, her brothers and parents at her bedside. The doctors had told him that she would have to be admitted into a psych ward for a week due to everything that had transpired. After all of that, she still couldn't breathe. Psych evaluations, paperwork, and now that she's discharged, she still couldn't catch a break. After all, her magic had awakened. On that note, here's Ari. I know I've mentioned this in my art fight profile between her and Kumi's character relationship status, but they did used to go to the same school, and since her bullies claimed Kumi was their friend, I did in fact think that Kumi was at least partially aware of what had happened and does not like her at first. But don't fret, they will eventually become friends. Also, the reason as for why Ari's parents were so hard on her and the root of the grudge won't be answered in this video, but trust, all will be revealed in time. Anyways, on to the second to the last character. We're almost done.
It's this way, right? Please don't trouble yourselves.
You have something in your face. Sometimes when I have like hate comments, I kind of like.
Sayamara Solomon, or Zai for short. Guardian name? Light Citrine. A pretty laid back and calm girl, she usually is the voice of reason and tends to be the girl her friends go to for advice. Her carefree demeanor makes her more approachable than some of her other teammates, but don't be mistaken. Despite being more chill than most, she is a total workaholic. Considering diligence is her linked virtue, it's no surprise she's a hard worker. If she's not at school or out on patrols, she's probably in her room working on some sort of fashion project. Although, some of her teammates do worry if she's working a little too hard. After all, it is good to take a break. She'll just have to make sure she doesn't get too comfortable. Zai is a pretty unique situation when it comes to her character in the previous drafts. That being that she was never a truly fully fledged character at all before. I'd actually made her when I'd gotten the revamped lore down for the world, but before there were only 6 main characters, and I needed there to be one more, so every character could be each linked to one of the 7 heavenly virtues and their opposing sins. However, I did take some inspirations visually from a villain from the previous draft. That villain was supposed to be sort of an unlikely ally to the heroes, but was unfortunately scrapped. However, she does still live on in Zai. She was at first gonna be a white girl, but I decided at last minute to change her race, which is when I took visual inspiration from the villain I just mentioned. Now she's my lesbian queen and I love her so much. For her civilian design, I wanted her to dress a bit masked since I figured they were the kind of clothes she would be most comfortable in, especially if she was constantly working. I imagine she would want to wear something that she would find comfortable so she's not distracted. For those who are wondering, yes, she is wearing hard sole slippers because she would rather be comfortable than have to worry about some expensive sneakers getting mud on them or something. Her amulet is a plushy keychain that her foster siblings made her. We'll get back to them. Also, whenever I draw her in my sketchbook, I usually give her eye bags, but for some reason I can't draw her with eye bags digitally without her looking significantly older than the rest of them. I don't know, I'll figure it out. If any of you know how to draw eye bags without making them look like age wrinkles, then please let me know. Her guardian form is very different from her civilian form. I know on my art fight page I called her a butch lesbian, but the more I think about it, I don't know if that's the correct way to describe her. Their guardian forms do reflect their interests and preferences, and obviously a majority of the time butch lesbians don't really wear stuff like this. At least I haven't seen any butch lesbians wear stuff like this. Zai does really like fashion and cute things, and I imagine she would find sort of Lolita type of fashion cute, specifically casual and classic Lolita, and I imagine she's a big Sanrio girly. or whatever the bootleg version is in this universe. I had to redo this drawing a little bit since I thought it over and realized she probably wouldn't wear dresses except for very rare occasions, but I think it all worked out. Her new design is much more reminiscent of OG style fashion since I feel it's a compromise between her admiration of Lolita style as well as her dressing a little bit more masculine. Plus I feel like this is kind of giving off drag show vibes, which I absolutely love. So for her lore, she, aside from Ethan, is the only one who has never met the others before the forming of their team. A few years ago, her parents just ended up disappearing one day, which led her to basically be bounced around in the foster care system. That was until she landed in a pretty toxic situation that she'd never forget. She lived with a seemingly normal couple, their biological son, and 3-ish foster siblings. To the people on the outside, this family seemed like the stereotypical upper middle class family, but on the inside, these parents were only their caretakers on paper. They really only cared about themselves and really only took in foster kids for the money aspect, which is something that unfortunately does tend to happen in real life. They never showed them proper care and really only used them to do chores or housework that was deemed too hard in their eyes. They would scream in their faces or lock them up if they ever dared to defy them or mess up. The only times when they seemed to care was when they would take them to Sunday services, because yes, I do think religion is a thing in this universe, considering the Newmans and Damons are a thing, where they would only make them pretend like they were perfect angels. Zai, being the oldest and trying to make the best out of her situation, starts getting jobs behind her foster parents' backs since she felt like there was nothing else she could do. The foster parents have threatened them before that if they snitch, they'd report them to social services, then they'd hunt them all down and all that stuff, and obviously they were scared kids who didn't want to die, so they ended up complying. I think out of all of them, the biological son would have it the worst, since I feel like his parents weren't as worried about CPS with him. Keep him in your head, we'll get back to him. Whenever Zai was out of the house, she felt most free since all she would need to do was work on homework or socialize for herself rather than for anyone else. However, one night when Zai was sneaking into the house from one of her night jobs, she was caught. Things escalated pretty quickly, so much so that a full-blown fistfight broke out between her and her foster mother. Zai was winning, by the way, even though that the foster mother started it. Anyways, while they were tussling, her foster father was trying to help out his wife to no avail. They heard their son in their room with a repeated flicking sound. They immediately discard Zai and rush to see what the hell he was doing. Zai noticed that the lighter the foster father left on the table was missing. She also started smelling something strange, but strong. She knew what was about to happen. She rushed upstairs and got all of her foster siblings out of the house, and they all managed to make it outside before the house burst into flames. When the firemen arrived, they surprisingly found the son unscathed, but as for the parents, it was too late. A firefighter broke out the news to the foster kids, and while the majority of them sat there in shock, Zai started crying, not to grieve, but out of relief. Her siblings were finally free. On that note, Zai is done. I do think there were more things that led up to the fire that contributed to everything happening, and I have a few ideas about what happened to her foster siblings after that, but just keep in mind, these are all just concepts and everything is subject to change. Not everything is automatically set in stone. Anyways, on to the final character. I'm almost done.
I like reading. You know what smut is?
That was a branch.
You couldn't get a degree in something more exciting like theater, so you can at least act like this is interesting?
So this little guy is obviously different from the others. Their name is Spunky. They are the group's magical companion, or as the Virtue Foundations call it, a Zemi. I chose that name since it was a word that I found whilst looking up synonyms for God, and since I feel like when the Guardians started to become a thing, the people worshipped them since they believed they were gifts from the Newmans. Zemis are creatures made of light magic and are made for the purpose to be companions for the Guardians, as well as aiding them in battle. They are creatures made of magic, so I do think the concept of gender just doesn't really apply to them. They do fully speak whatever languages the members of their assigned team speak, and pretty much have their own thoughts, feelings, and personality. They all gain the ability to turn human once they're close enough to everyone on their team. They all also have their own unique abilities that are able to be used in battle and fight alongside their human companions. Spunky, however, is kind of in a unique predicament. See, when Zemis are created, usually with the combined magic of their team, they are able to know what their power is, but for Spunky, they had no clue what their ability was. As much as I could pull out, ew, what is it? You're gonna have to guess. Their actual power is pretty prevalent, to the point where I really don't care if it would technically be a spoiler. Basically, Spunky is the trope in hero-based media, mainly shows like Pretty Cure or Super Sentai, where there's another member that joins the group later than the others. That's right, Spunky, when in human form, can transform into a magical guardian by the name of Light Amethyst. Why didn't I draw a Light Amethyst? I haven't designed their outfit yet, but I will say their their amulet is a little bell choker that the others gave them when they finally grew close enough to each other, which was also the point when Spunky was able to transform into a human. The emotional surge happens sometime during the first or second arc. I still have things that I have to figure out, but I do have some other things planned out that I definitely will talk about when I eventually talk about the villains of the story. But for now, here's Spunky. While I'm writing the script, it's 2:31 a.m. and I am so glad I am done with this.
When did you get up so fast? Why are you so mean to me?
Oh, they're my friends now. As long as I'm around, you'll always have a wingman.
And that concludes the video. I have no idea how long this video is gonna be, but rest assured I will be making more shorter videos in the future. I am in too deep not to see this video all the way to the end. Plus I wanna talk about my babies, damn it all. But if you made it all the way to the end, first of all, thank you. If this video is even as close to as long as I think it is, then my god, you are a trooper. I hope you enjoyed my second and very long video. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, follow the gram, whatever else YouTubers say, and stay spooky. Bye!